Hey everybody, welcome to episode 2 of Life Talks with myself, Michael Bacchioni. This is my guest today, David Smiley. We actually met training at New York Sports Club. I used to be a personal trainer there, and we used to have really awesome talks. And he is a public defender, correct?
Yep.
And politically, we differ a little bit, but I think now more than ever, we as people need to come together. We need to put our differences aside, and we need to have difficult conversations. Briefly before this call, I was just saying like how I think one of the problems that we have right now is that when the topics of politics and religion come up, people don't want to talk about it because it makes people feel uncomfortable. But I think that's one of the beautiful things, and I think you would agree, right? The First Amendment is not made for the majority; it's made for the minority viewpoint. And so long as you're not hurting people, you're not calling for, I'm not calling to harm you or destroy your reputation. I should be able to challenge those thoughts, and we should all challenge our own thoughts at the end of the day. And that's why I'm having you on, because I need to get rid of my own ignorance, and I hope we can learn from each other in this.
We, Absolutely. You just said something that I know we don't want to go too deep into politics or, try and go too heavy. And I'm going to say the name Trump. And we all know how loaded that name is. But just when you said the First Amendment is for, the unpopular opinion, basically. So this is a situation where Trump was banned from Twitter, and one of the entities or organizations that condemned that and made a statement against it is the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, which is typically considered like more of a liberal organization, but they spoke out against that and said it sets a dangerous precedent, and that
Actually, I didn't know that.
yeah, so that it just sort of goes to the importance of free speech, like you were saying, and it is interesting to see both sides sort of come together and advocate for that right.
Yeah, and I want to say on the video here, what I'm seeing is there's such a divide. It's like I'm seeing a lot of memes that basically bash one side, and it just like, look how hypocritical this is, and I'm seeing it on both sides. And I mentioned earlier, because we were speaking briefly before, that any type of violence is wrong. Now, not to judge, right? When we lash out, we're human beings, right? We lash out, but people need to be held responsible for their actions. Now, the people who stormed into the Capitol, those people should be held responsible for their actions independently, those people. And the same thing with the Black Lives Matter protest riots. Anyone who was rioting, burning down buildings, causing harm, should be held accountable, that specific person. Because you know what? It's my view that 90% of people on both sides are peaceful protests. These people who are on Black Lives Matter, they see that there's a lot of racist people in this world, and there's a lot of racist institutions, and they're expressing their right to say, you know what, this has to change, and they're going out on the street. And the people who are in the in the other camp, they're saying, well, we don't want to turn into a communist country. We have all our products are from China. There's a lot of shady shit going on, and I think we need to come together here, because the last thing we want to do is be fighting our brothers and our sisters. Now, personally, I voted for Donald Trump, but I don't see myself as someone who wants to go hurt every Democrat or silence every Democrat. And I have family members who voted on the other side, and I still love them to death. I mean, we may argue politically, and I also don't see myself as a Trump worshiper. Just because I voted for him, I see the world differently. I don't agree with everything the man says, and I appreciate you bringing up the ACLU, and I did not know that, but because my concern is I look at my life, I said a lot of dumb shit in my life. And if you zoomed in on all the dumb shit I've said in my life, wow, honestly, Trump's got nothing on me, right? Because I can zoom in on my Facebook chat, like all of my chats, my text messages, you can find some dirt on me. And I feel like many people are the same. And I want to, rather than bash Trump, bash Biden. And that's why I said I didn't want to go too much into politics per se, because I think me and you disagree on some things. And I think it would be more beneficial to touch on it like we're doing now, but to really go into what we can do as individuals, how we can participate in our process, understand our financial system, understand our constitution, and learn from it. Because I think to a certain extent we've all kind of been asleep. Me personally, I'd play video games. That's been my thing. I know you're big into football, man. I remember
Oh,
this guy. I used to
watching
text.
it,
Yeah,
watching it.
the champ in fantasy football. And I remember
Yeah.
asking you, well, I was like an idiot, like, asking you who to pick up and all that. And I think, in moderation, it's good, but I think we've been asleep at the wheel as a majority. Like, we're not participating. And I think it ties into the victim mentality of, well, what can I do? Well, what difference can I make? And versus saying I made every difference I could. I tried to understand the problems as best I could. I listened to people who I disagreed with, and and we lacking love. I think that's another thing to recognize. Um, I know you're into reggae music, right?
Oh yeah, I love reggae, and um, actually, one of the cool things that I did, or played a role in over during the pandemic was my company, like my business partner and I, the guy I work with, who I've always told you about, Deli Ranks. He he released a project, and it was the music that he put out there. Like every single song had a really positive message, and a lot of the songs were recorded during the pandemic, and I was like, it's one of those things I'm the most proud of, like musically. It's called the S20 rhythm. You can check it out on
What is it?
YouTube.
What's it called?
S20, like the Samsung phone,
Okay.
the S20, and then it's just rhythm, RIDDIM. That's
And that's
like
on YouTube?
yeah, the S20 rhythm. If you Google it, it'll pop up.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome.
that was a little plug. So thanks for
Yeah,
giving me
no,
that
100%, man. We're here
opening,
to
bro.
plug each other, man. I mean, I feel like we all have gifts to share. Yours definitely is music. And yeah, I haven't listened to your music in a long time, if I'm being brutally honest. And I'll definitely check that out now, because, another thing in this journey in this past year of hell, I've noticed more so recently, really the past like month or so, like vibrations are real, man. Like when you listen to music, I've been listening to music from like the 70s and the 80s, and it just hits differently. I mean, now it's the music now is, and we talked about this. I remember back in the day too. I shared, different, the same conversation of just how, you know, there's an animal side to us, right? Like you're not just gonna listen to beautiful music all the time, right? There's the move, bitch, get out the way, right? Like there's that
Yeah, yeah.
vibe we need. That's part of our human nature. But I think the
Hmm.
problem becomes when it's like that's majority of our music, and there's like soul wrenching dead music when you walk into a supermarket of just
Very, yeah.
garbage crap.
It's
And
almost like hypnotic, and keeps you.
yeah,
It definitely is like a lullaby to keep you relaxed in a way too.
yeah, and
So okay, I don't. Let me. You made it. You've been. You had a great intro of setting the table for a lot of topics. Um, some of them are more not controversial, but some of them would be spots where you and I disagree. And you're absolutely right that we agree that we want to come together. Um, I don't think there's a simple answer to that. I don't know if you've watched the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma. I feel like it would be
I
right up
did,
your
I
alley.
did, I
Yeah.
did.
So
I'm conflicted on it.
it's like it's a problem because you know we're basically I try to get out of my echo chamber, but I mean, I really do. Like I flip from CNN to MSNBC to Fox News to OAN to Newsmax, and everybody's got a talking point. Everybody's got an agenda, you
Yeah.
know. But then, I start to ask myself, like, you know, why is it that some people will say if they see something on that channel or one of those channels that it it doesn't get the benefit of the doubt of being true, in the same way that, like, some guy throwing on a video camera, making a YouTube video, um, saying, you know, I would say, like, a lot of maybe conspiracy, maybe just some far out claims or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
That
oh,
that
go ahead.
I just want to say, like, some people will give that media the indicia of reliability because of the setting, and they don't give the benefit of the doubt to the mainstream media, um, which is interesting to me. Like, you know, I'm just gonna tell you. Well, I don't know if I want to. Whatever. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I have a friend of mine who is, like, totally wrapped up in conspiracy theories. Whether it's the 5G conspiracy theory that is what's causing, that's what's killing people, or it's that the vaccine has, like, alien DNA that is gonna, like, mutate us. Like, you know, so why is it that if that person sees a video of, like, a on YouTube of, like, a doctor, someone claiming, say, the caption is like doctor speaks out, and they start saying that, this vaccine is going to kill you or whatever, like, that is so much more reliable to people than seeing, like, Dr. Sanjay Gupta or Dr. Fauci on mainstream media say that the vaccine is fine. Like, I feel like some people are just going to be like, nope, I'm not going to believe that because those are the CNN guys. And
Yeah.
other people, and that same person is going to be like, wow, this is like a underground kind of video, and, like, this is the real news. And,
Yeah.
like, I'm like so informed because I watched this, and, like,
I'm
you know,
somewhat guilty of it. And I think you make really good points though that I've reflected myself, right? Because me personally, I am trying to, like, I feel like when we were kids, we were so open to whatever the truth was. And then over time we program ourselves that we have it all, right? And as far as what you said with the mainstream media, me personally, I've watched it. Same thing as you. I've watched more so I've leaned right this year. Um, but I think, man, on a human level, I think that we're all pieces to a big puzzle, that we're all um, nodes in a network, in the sense that me and you having this conversation right now has a ripple effect in ways that we don't even know, because your friends are going to watch this, your family is going to watch this, my friends, my family is going to watch this, and my inner circle. And what's most important, and I think I'd like to convey, is that we are really one people. It doesn't matter what color skin you are. It doesn't matter. What matters, for Martin Luther King, right? It's the content of your character, what you do, how you live your life, what role did you play. And for me personally, when I watch mainstream media, I'm just sick. I'm so sickened by it. And I, I just see so much hypocrisy. I see so much one side, my side is right. And there's so much arrogance hidden behind it. And I really don't trust them. I don't, but I also do believe what you're saying to a certain regard as far as conspiracy theories, because to me, it doesn't seem crazy to think that people conspire, right? Conspiracy. uh, I think it would almost be better to say there's conspiracy analyst. I like that word better, because a conspiracy analyst says, okay, the moon isn't made of cheese. Okay. It's not made of cheese. Um, and there's truth and there's falsehood. And at the end of the day, we're all trying to figure it out. And I think we actually have the eyes to see based on our own integrity. So if we're full of shit, we're not going to be able to see the truth. So because we're blinded by our own lies. And I've learned that in my life, right? I haven't always been the honest person in my life. And as I've come to see how really integrated I am and how I affect all the people around me by making my own mistakes, I've seen more and more how I actually end up hurting myself. So I think I also am pretty confident to say that if we knew the truth, I think we would shit our pants in a certain light. In one regard of how simple it is, like how we're missing the obvious, how we're all connected and how we're all caught up in our own little lives, and complicated. Um, I said simple and complicated, right?
It's all right. I think you were saying something is complicated by something else.
So
So the truth look simple, right? Is what you were saying.
I think the truth is simple. It just we have been programmed with so much information, and what I mean by that is like even our language, right? I mentioned this. I think I mentioned this in one of the other podcasts, but that the word person comes from the root word persona, which actually means mask. So when we say someone's a good person, we're saying they're a good mask, and I think one of the problems is there's this identity politics is and identity politics being
let me
yeah because
don't
I'm
know.
speaking a lot. Yeah,
That's all right. No, I mean it's your
well, there's a lot of points, so I think
you're the host. You're the host. There was something you just said, and I might take us a little bit away from politics and down a little bit more of a philosophy road,
cool.
which we always like.
Yes.
But you know, and I studied philosophy as an undergrad, and I'm by no means recently read up on this. Okay, so if somebody's a philosophy expert out there listening to me try and regurgitate something I learned 20 years ago, I apologize in advance. But you're talking about the persona being a mask, right? And here's something interesting is we as human beings have ultimate freedom, right? Like if I wanted to, I could murder everybody in my house right now. I could go out and get a gun and kill everybody. But what makes me not do that is the person, the definition of self that I have as somebody who would never do that. Obviously, I would be devastated and incredibly sad, but that freedom. There's a philosopher named Jean-Paul Sartre, and he basically used to say that we create this persona to almost protect ourselves from that unlimited freedom. I don't know. I think I did a really bad job regurgitating that. You might have to edit it out.
That's fine. No. I think to touch on that. So basically, yeah, we create this identity that we attach ourselves to because I think it's more it's almost like you attach yourself. I think it's a social thing. We fit into we're a group. We fit into groups, and I think actually it's true, right? Like you have to have your own. We have identities, right? Like we have our viewpoints, and I think on a certain level, it's healthy to have a personality, right? Like you like chocolate, I like vanilla. Like we have different tastes in life, right? But I think the problem becomes when those things are stripped away, when you really, and I feel like that's like soul work, like to really slice through and like, I've talked about before, like, I think you're not human until you get to the point of why am I even here? Like when you start asking those questions, those real questions, that's actually, there's a quote, the two most important days in your life is the day you're born and the day you find out why. And I think many people go to the grave and they don't even know why they're here. They go through, they're just working for a paycheck, and it's not to knock people who are working hard. It's by any means, but it's very few, I think, are truly self-aware that they know what their purpose is here, and they actually make a living for it too. I think it's a very rare gift that very few truly live. But the group identity problem I was touching on, I think, is when someone's like, I'm a Trumper, or I'm a Bidener, or I'm, it's nice
I don't
if
know if
it's
anyone's saying I'm a Bidener.
Bidener. I'm making
No,
that a thing.
no. It's like, no, I feel like nobody's that excited about Joe Biden,
No,
other than the fact that he's not Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think that's a problem too, because I think picking the lesser of two evils isn't a good thing. But then also you can't pick a third party. Our whole system is so that's why I think it's so much more beneficial to go back to what can we do. And I think it starts by understanding our constitution, by understanding our banking system. We were talking earlier, we don't truly understand our whole banking system, or at least, we know a guy who does, right? Like, I'm the same thing. I know someone who's very familiar with it, but I don't know. I should know it. Why don't I know it? Like, the best that I can, the best that
you're
I
right.
can articulate. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
The best that I can articulate it is, I saw a cartoon a little while back, and it was basically saying that back in the day we used to barter, right? And I'll give you an apple pie, you give me whatever, some jewelry, and that was the bartering system. And then it became gold and silver was, a way of you give me 2 gold, and then what happened was the bank came along and they said, I'll hold all your gold and I'll give you an IOU. And at first it's good, as long as 1 IOU equals the exact amount of gold or silver, whatever. But then what happened was that if let's say I have 10 people and they all gave me 1 gold, and I give them all 10 IOUs, so long as they don't all come and collect their gold, I can make more IOUs and I can give it out to people. And I basically, it's a control of money. So, and that's what banks do, is that they have, let's say they have $10 million, they can lend out more than that, so long as people don't all come to the bank. And then it gets so complicated. I don't fully understand it myself, but the game is rigged in a certain sense. And I don't believe politicians are going to save us from it. I think that we have to educate ourselves. I believe in grassroots movements.
You want to know one great example of the game being rigged?
Monopoly.
If you look at the interest rates that you get charged on a credit card versus what you can make while investing, I mean, it's considered like, I think the stock market just did 20%, was up 20% over the last 6 months, which is like massive.
Yeah.
Right. That involves like risk and all this stuff, like, well, whatever, forget the risk aspect of it. But, then you look at a credit card company. I mean, they're taking a risk too by lending people money. But I mean, you're not getting, like, a lot of people will make like 5%, 7%. Credit cards are charging like 17%.
More, 25%.
25%. Yeah. So, I mean, look at those rates, and like, you're doing great if you're making 10%, 15% off your investments, and they're just flat out charging people 20%, 25%, like you said. So, but I'll tell you what, you want to go into something juicy?
Let's do it. Let's get some clicks on this.
All right. Well, I mean, look, there's something you said in the beginning of this conversation, which is a big talking point right now, which is comparing the people who stormed the Capitol to the people in the Black Lives Matters movement. And I know this is a juicy topic.
Sure.
Okay.
That's why I think it's necessary to talk about it.
Yeah. So here's how I see it. Okay. And I'll try and make one point at a time so you could respond instead of laying out my whole theory on it. But I don't like the comparison at all.
Cool.
I don't think it's an accurate comparison. I guess the only thing that they have in common is that, there was property destruction and, I guess, some acts of violence, by, although whatever. Okay. And all of us, like, it's very easy to say, like, I condemn looting, like, I don't agree with people going into, other people's businesses and destroying them because of police brutality. I don't think that's, but
No, Baker, I'm listening 100% because, dude,
okay,
I want to I want to slice through this BS because we need to come together. So I'm all ears, man. And I think what we need to have our ideas tag each other and we stay separate from them, right? Because that's how you get the truth. If I don't want to be attached to my ideas. I want to get to the truth, the higher truth to bring us together, right? But we have to be able to call out hypocrisy, and we also have to see how each situation can be different. So I'm all ears, dude. Like
okay,
100%.
so obviously, like, the main thing that the reason people are comparing these two things is because there were buildings that were set on fire, police stations, Targets, whatever, and then there was the Capitol building that was like, it was vandalized. It was just, windows were smashed, you know, horrible things were done inside the building. People died. A police officer was beaten. A police officer was killed. And, you know, and I'm okay. So one group of people is definitely okay. I don't think you and I would disagree that Black people are disproportionately negatively affected by police brutality, and that is a legitimate gripe that the Black Lives Matter movement has with the status quo.
Say that again.
That police brutality disproportionately affects Black and brown people, basically resulting in their death, and that the people in the Black Lives Matter movement who are sort of protesting or who are protesting police brutality, that claim right there, we can agree that Black people and brown people are disproportionately victimized by police brutality, or do you not accept that that premise right there? Do you think it's more even-handed, or do you think that do you think it's a legit gripe?
It's hard for me to answer because.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Have you ever have you ever been pulled over while driving with anybody who's Black?
No, Spanish, yes.
Okay. So was it a different experience than when you were pulled over like with your girlfriend versus like a Spanish guy? Or let me ask you, instead of even asking
I have come into an encounter with a New York City cop who was absolutely batshit crazy, and I was shitting my pants. Like he had me take my, like, I was parked in a no parking, and he like freaked out, and I had the first experience of what that's like. And I do think that there are cops who are racist, and they should be held accountable.
Let me just sorry, I don't mean to jump you.
No, not at all.
Let me ask it to you this way instead, because instead of going based on anecdotal evidence, which is kind of the way I asked it the first time.
Sure.
Let's just ask. Let me ask you, like, do you think that if you were pulled over with your girlfriend, or even, okay, do you think that you would have a different experience if you were pulled over either by yourself, with your girlfriend, or if you were pulled over with like a Black guy, or like, two Black and Spanish guys in the car with you compared to like two white girls in the car with you? Do you think, like, just based on on your gut, do you think it would be the same experience, or do you think, like, do you think the cop would be a little bit more nervous? Do you think that, even if it's a good cop, like that sort of thing?
Yeah, I can see it. I absolutely can see it.
Okay. And that doesn't mean that it's okay to burn Target.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. But to me, it's definitely fucked up. And like, if I were seeing people who looked exactly like me, which is the way, obviously, like I have a lot of the black people I work with, have, they go through like a lot of emotional turmoil when they see like another unarmed black man be killed by the cops.
Yeah.
It's an experience that the only thing I can think of is like when I was in Hebrew school and I was being educated about the Holocaust.
So here's what I would say we're in agreement and we're in disagreement. I have no idea what it's like to walk in someone who's a black man's shoes. So I really don't have a say in what their view is, and I have no right to judge anyone because you know what? I think the bigger issue is people who are in poor areas, right? Because people who are poor areas, who may be higher in black population, right? They have to suffer, and I think it's more of a I think it's more of a poverty issue than it is a race issue. And there may be more people who are, I mean, I'm someone who, yeah, I see where this goes. I see where this whole thing goes.
Well, we could go way deep into
Yeah.
it, right? Like we could talk about the difference between growing up poor versus growing up black.
Do I think there's police brutality? Absolutely. Do
It's,
I think that all cops are bad? No. And
okay, but
I've
let's
met
go.
cops. Yeah. I've met cops that are
Let's go
very
back
good
to the.
people. And I've
Let me
met,
just go back to the
yeah.
comparison between the people who stormed the Capitol and the Black Lives.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, yeah.
Because the reason I brought that up is just so that we could at least agree on the basic premise that that's a legitimate gripe that the Black Lives Matters protest people are putting forth, and we just agreed on that premise basically.
Yeah. I'm very curious of to me it didn't seem like an organic movement. And that's my view and it can be biased, but I I've seen a lot of articles that talks about a lot of funding that goes to that the people
Okay,
who are
well
running that
let's keep the topic we're trying to talk about is
the
like
difference between okay, we'll stick with that.
that I don't like that talking point and I disagree with it. And
Sure.
I guess the first point I want to make is that okay, so the very first thing I want to make is that given that we both agree that that's a legitimate gripe, I don't see the legitimate gripe that the people had who stormed the Capitol. So that I don't see what their gripe is, other than the fact that, in my opinion, they were lied to about an election being stolen from them. They might have a subjective belief that they were
So then the
wronged
question
in that way.
is it or is it not? And how do we know? And that's
So
a very
do you think that the
question.
people at the Capitol had a legitimate gripe?
No, I personally think that those are bad actors in the same way that those rioters were bad actors.
Okay.
I think that most people in the Black Lives Matter movement, in my heart, were good people who were protesting, griping about a legitimate concern. In the same way that most people who were at the Capitol who were called were good people. But when you have a few bad actors, and I've seen some videos that are questionable.
Hold on. The original comparison that I'm trying to, or the point I'm trying to make is that one side had a legitimate gripe, the other side did not. So it's a bad.
I don't think it's but I don't think it's legitimate to burn anything down, regardless of how frustrated you are.
I'm not talking about the actions that were taken.
But how can you separate the actions from the gripe?
Well, because you're the one comparing the people who stormed the Capitol to the people, and I'm saying it's a bad comparison. And I think if you start at the root of it, which is what are the Black Lives Matter movement, they have a legitimate gripe. We just agreed on that. So tell me what the legitimate gripe is of the peaceful protesters.
Well, they believe an election is rigged. And personally, I think that the legitimacy is if it was a rigged election and the media platforms, with the exception of a narrow view of Fox, which personally I think they're also just talking points too. If you have,
but just basically to me, to keep
if the election was rigged,
You think it's
That's a
legit
legitimate
gripe?
gripe. Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so
The question is, was it rigged? And the question is,
well,
who's giving us the information?
So okay, one gripe is certainly readily apparent, and we both completely agree on it. The other one is far from readily apparent that this election was stolen from
Depending
Donald
on
Trump.
depending on depending on if you believe the media or not. And here, let me take a step back on something that
Well,
I think
okay.
this is just my own view. I
Well,
think
you can
that we
explain to me why you think that it's legit. Well, whatever. Go ahead. I didn't mean to jump you.
no, not at all. Now, I don't know if you've ever watched George Carlin. He's one of my favorite
Yeah,
comedians,
I love George Carlin. Yeah.
and when he said, there's a big club and you ain't in it, and the shit that they
Yeah.
shuffle around every 4 years, they're owned by these big corporations. And personally, this is my view. I think that Trump exposed these people. Now, do I think that it's also possible that he's in it for himself? Sure. But I also think that regardless of whether he's in it for himself or whether he's exposing rigged elections that have been around, I think those are both legitimate in the sense that I don't think our vote has really ever mattered. I know for years growing up, this is actually the first election I've ever voted. And growing up, I'd see 50%, 49%. And my gut, which I can't really go with anything else, so I don't have statistics in front of me or whatever, is our elections never really mattered. And one person gets in and that nothing really ever changes. Wars continue, shitty policy. Everyone hates politicians. No one wants to talk about politics, or everyone gets heated and I'm right, you're wrong. And I really don't see anything changing. And for the first time, at least from one positive light, I think that we could both agree people are paying attention more so. And it's tricky because we've put it off for so long. So we're all heated. I hate to say this, but it's the truest answer is I don't know if it was rigged. And I really don't know. And I would say that
Where
if
does
the
the
media
doubt come from?
the
Where does
doubt the doubt comes from my trust in the media. I do not trust the media. And take Trump and Biden out of it. I've seen so many situations how the media stokes off fear. They're based off clickbait. They operate off of revenue, off the amount of clicks that they get. And when people are very fearful, now they're totally tuned into this narrative, and it's all built on fear, and it's all built on we're all basically the whole world is like, oh my God, what's going to happen right now? I mean, that's basically
okay. Yeah.
what it's doing.
Okay.
And so personally, I don't trust the media. I trust you more than I trust the media. I
Well,
probably trust you more than the conspiracy theorists that you're speaking of too, because I think that when you lose trust in the media, you basically can believe anything, and that's a problem as well too, right? You don't just, yeah, but it's also if you see it in the right light, it's almost like, okay, here's the truth. I don't know shit. If the media, let's say the media is corrupt, they're all corrupted, they're all owned, which I do believe they are. And what I mean by that is that they're owned by 6 companies, and we're getting basically 6 viewpoints versus.
I mean, the thing about, okay, let me just, because okay. I want to talk about the thing you just said about the media. I mean, this is the way it's supposed to work, right? Is that if the media is putting out false information, that they're opening themselves up to liability, and they could get sued and wind up having to pay out a lot of money. So that's supposed to be the check on the media. And there was an example of that where CNN got sued by that kid who was like staring down the Native American guy. Yeah, they took some heat and they got hit pretty hard from that.
And I actually got caught up in that too. When I first saw that, I was like, holy shit, like, why is he being that guy? Like, he's being a selfish kid. And I was actually on the other side when I first saw that.
Yeah. I guess I only wanted to bring that up to talk about that. That's like a check. And, one of the first day of law school, when I was in the torts class, which is like about lawsuits, like civil lawsuits, what you can sue somebody for doing. and what the strategy is that goes
And
into it.
definitely, I'd like you to go into that too, because I know we have our differences in that. I do want to continue to talk about this, but I'm also interested in like, I want to learn from you too, as far as, you know, like things that you've learned being in, you know, the judicial process, and like, you know, things that you've really taken away from having a career in that. But go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the first day one lesson is called deep pockets theory. And basically, when you're planning a lawsuit, you're looking for the guy with the deepest pockets to sue, because there is zero money in suing broke people. You can't get anything.
Yeah.
So, you know, having that, like, that's one of the reasons that, you know, sometimes people do feel comfortable when something is backed by a big corporation, because by them putting it out there, they're exposing themselves to a certain amount of liability. Like, I could make the argument right now that, like, and I don't know how persuasive this is even to myself. Somebody else said this to me when I was concerned about the vaccine. They're like, you know, look, you think these companies would put a vaccine out there if, you know,
Oh
it's
man,
going to
let's
kill
not open
people?
that
And
door up right now.
I'm just saying that,
Yeah,
yeah,
but yeah.
I know, but you know, they were bringing that up as a check on the big pharmaceuticals. When I'll tell you, like, I definitely think that it's a cost benefit analysis for them. Like, and most big corporations will make decisions based on how much money they're going to make. So they could do something that is going to harm people if they think it's going to cost, they're going to make more money out of it in the long run. But I don't know. I am definitely going off on something there too. But it was something you said that made me think. But basically, so right. So when you hear something from big media, you know, unlike the guy on YouTube who is broke and he doesn't really have accountability, nobody's going to sue him or her for anything. But these big companies are going to get sued and have to pay out big money if they're both, you know, if they're not following the laws that apply to journalism.
Yeah,
And
I think it's a fair point in a certain context, but I think the question then becomes, how much influence do they have? How much money do they have? And how many times do they throw basically a pawn here and there, right? They just to give the illusion that they have, you know, that oh, well, they can be held
they're
liable.
accountable.
And also another thing is, you know, I think we would both agree that it's our responsibility to keep media accountable too. And I think you know, the difference between someone who's on the mainstream, someone who's on a mainstream is reading a teleprompter, you know. I don't like to just believe somebody just because they're quote unquote reputable. I mean, I've met people in my life. I mean, so this actually goes back into the identity politics and the persona, the personality thing, right? Because I don't like when people argue from a position of authority. Now, authority in and of itself is not a bad thing, right? If a cop is a cop, you know, I respect the badge to a certain extent. But if a cop starts going around and starts, you know, he walks around with his gun and just points it at people, I don't respect his authority at that point because he's not integrous. And it's, I think it was in Departed. It was like there's the cop with the badge and the
I don't remember
versus
that movie.
the cop with the gun. So there's the cops out there who use their power and they use it to flaunt it. And there's cops out there who actually do live by the letter of the law. I do believe that there are both sides of that, and there's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of, you know, a lot of movies have pointed that out. But that's to the same thing as I think it's almost like the Matrix, right? Like in the sense that I don't have like individual journalists. There's most people are good people. These journalists are going there. They think like they're seeing it from their lens. And I think what the problem becomes is that the lens becomes narrowed. And I think you need a bigger lens. I want to listen to the crazy conspiracy theorists and I want to listen to the mainstream media. And I don't want to just silence a crazy conspiracy because I believe that most people can navigate their way to truth if they're given the truth. So what I think maybe what we would agree on would be that let everybody, like, if I post a video on YouTube that, hey, I found the cure for COVID, you just eat your own shit, right?
Yeah.
And someone eats their shit. I say, well, this guy needs to be banned. I think that's a dangerous road. I think at that point we're saying, well, you don't have critical thinking skills. You're all idiots. You need to, it's a slippery slope.
Absolutely.
So I think, you know, should there be some account? Absolutely. I mean, I think there should be in some sense, right? But where that line is, I think we collectively have to know where that is. Like you have to, in a free society, you're going to have crazies, right? I'd rather live in a free society where versus a completely controlled society that's safe, and we don't get to say the wrong thing, right? So to a certain extent, I think that we have to have the capability to say the wrong thing. We have to listen to idiots, and who's the idiot? And also the idea that, sometimes the guy who's looked at as batshit crazy is actually telling the truth. And I think the best way to approach life is to listen to everyone as if you'd learn from everyone, but don't just blindly follow someone. So I don't want to follow just CNN. I want to listen to my mom's opinion. I want to listen to your opinion. I want to listen to everyone's opinion around me. And then I want to listen to CNN and Fox, and then I want to listen to reggae and get my vibes up so I can know like who's full of shit and who isn't. But I make light, but I think we need to communicate to know what, like, I like it. I think we should have more independent media, and I do understand what you're saying though. Like, what makes something reputable, right? You can't just have Joe Schmo like this is the news report. Like, who's going to verify him, right? But I think that actually naturally fixes itself if people are involved in the whole process, right? Like, and I think that's been a problem for so long, right? People go to these jobs 9 to 5, and we're working like crazy. The little time we have, we want to just watch Netflix. We don't want to engage on like, all these, and even politicians, right? There's like 5,000 page bills, right? That just get
Hold on,
pushed through.
let me jump in for a sec.
Go for it.
I think one of the most valuable skills that somebody can have in society right now is to be able to separate fact from opinion in news reporting. And if you are watching Hannity, or you are watching Jake Tapper or Don Lemon, okay, it's important to know when they're telling you their opinion versus when they're just showing footage. And a lot of times I will pop on one of those networks and I will hear the opinion and I'll say, okay, this is the news tonight on Fox News. Maybe it was Antifa that was part of the storming of the Capitol. Trump didn't tell people specifically to attack the Capitol. It's, whatever. Pop on CNN, insurrection at the Capitol, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you have to be smart enough as a human being to function the way we're being bombarded by media. If you can't see the right-wing talking points or the left-wing talking points mixed in with the facts and be able to separate out what is the talking point versus what occurred, then you're in a lot of trouble. And you're just going to believe like you are going to have your opinions formed for yourself. So I think that skill of being able to see what they're doing, to be able to
I think that's a good point. I can't even, I mean, I can't tell you. I don't watch, like I've seen, for example, I see Trevor Noah and I see, which is basically just a Trump insult every 5 seconds. It's not even funny to me. Like I actually I'm all for joking about the president. Like, cool, man. Like, but a sense of integrity.
Trevor Noah is not really news. He's a comedian and he's on a comedy news show. So
correct.
Talk about somebody who's like more in the context of CNN or something like that.
I don't really know anybody who's not. I don't see any. I don't know everybody by name. But I very rarely see. I can't even tell you that is one person that I know that I'm like, you know what, that's someone who I really is just spitting facts, not.
Oh, nobody does. Nobody spits facts. It's back to back to back. It's
and I'm biased too, right? So that's the whole like, and I tune into one view, and then that's why I'm like, I want to zoom out. I want to hear what David has to say. I want to hear what. That's why I keep saying that.
When I watch CNN, it's basically 3 hours on each network from like or whatever, 4 even. But you know, the heavy hitters are like Ingram Angle, Tucker Carlson, Hannity, and then on CNN it's Anderson Cooper,
Yeah.
Cuomo primetime, and then Don Lemon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it gradually gets more extreme opinion, less fact as the night goes on.
Yeah.
So like I would say Hannity is like the most opinion, and Don Lemon is the counterbalance on the left.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's virtually just, both of them are just
Sure.
railing,
They have, correct.
Railing whatever their respective viewpoint is. Both
Correct.
of them are doing it. And like the problem is that a lot of people are going to tune into Don Lemon and think that he's reporting the news.
And the same for the other side. Absolutely.
And the same for Hannity. People are going to tune into Hannity and think he's reporting.
Yeah, that everyone wants to go out and beat each other up. And it's like...
Yeah. And that's why I'm talking about that skill set, that ability to discern what their agenda is versus like what happened, and to try and form your own opinion.
So I think that's a really good point. There's someone that I've been talking to recently, Charlie. I have videos up if you want to check out after, but he, he says something that I was grown up religious, and I kind of resented the church. And then, we've had our spiritual conversations. I've mentioned Muji and named my damn dog after him. But as I've gotten older, I see that, there's more to the Bible than meets the eye. For example, sin. Growing up, I was like, sin means you're bad, versus sin actually means to miss the point, that we're ignorance. That the truth is we're all sinners in the sense that we've all missed the point. Not that we're all bad and we should all feel guilty, which is, to me, that's the institution of the church has taught me, which I think is wrong. It's institutionalized guilt. You're a sinner, you're a victim. Jesus hates you, right? Like that's totally, as I've gotten older, I've connected the dots that that's not how I've come to interpret it, that it's so much more powerful of a meaning. And, the golden rule, that's what it's really all about. And, but I wanted to, to your point, now to have the discernment, I think really comes from really self-work. Because I've said in the previous video, I think that we're all full of shit. I think I'm full of shit. I think you're full of shit in a certain light, that we all carry our own ignorances and our own biases, and it's part of society, right? We're programmed. Me and you are both programmed for decades. All the things that we've watched, all the Hollywood movies we watch, we've been programmed and we don't even realize how deep it is, music. And, we talked about vibes earlier, like, when you're listening to crappy music over and over again, like I always bring up the no hate to Eminem, I love 8 Mile. That was like the last scene in 8 Mile was fire. Like how he kind of just shits on himself and then he just lays it out on the other guy. But
great scene. Yeah.
But the song, I love the way you lie, right? Millions of people sang that song, right? And it has meaning to everybody, and it's not to hate on your music, but the idea of saying I love the way you lie, you're programming a generation of people to say I love the way you lie. Now, how that ripples out in time, that can attract us to people that you actually can program yourself. If you wake up and say every morning and sing, I love the way you lie, I love the way you lie, you may start attracting liars into your life. In the same way, if you wake up every morning, you say, I'm going to be positive today, best I can. You're more likely to have a positive day. So, my point being is that we and I think I'd like to shift the conversation just because I think it's good that we had these conversations, that we can disagree respectfully on certain things and come together on things. But I think really the problem is to fix our own moral compass, and to really make the lives around the people who we disagree with better. You plugged your song, for example. Go ahead.
Let me say something about the moral compass that you just said. Because this is something I have a friend of mine who is like just thinks we're going to have a civil war. We're so, shit is just ruined forever. And, when you talk about the moral compass, like, I believe, I don't know what this really means, but like, I think that whether you're on the left or you're on the right, if you see another human being suffering, you're going to have a natural inclination to want to help them.
Yeah.
And that the fact that that is fundamentally true for the majority of people, I still think that that is more powerful than what
Yes.
divides us.
I
And,
agree.
ultimately, like, nobody's in, if you see a kid drowning, nobody's asking them who they want
Yeah.
to vote for,
Yes.
and and that's what gives me hope. So I guess I'll just, when we're talking about, that popped into my head at that point, a little bit of optimism, because
Yeah, I'm with you. I've been like I said, I've been listening to old school music so much lately, and it's like I get into that zone. Me, like being in the gym scene. I've been running now and just getting like just putting out good vibes and just sending a text to somebody that I know. And there's moments where I fall down, like I slip into that holy shit, it's all the end of the world, and is this really even real life right now? And
yeah,
I'll tune into that fear. And but then, I just have to remind myself, it's like, what is it all about? Everyone wants to post a quote. It's like, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, so live your life today. But now when it really shit's like really exposing those quote, like the truth of those quotes, they hit a little different. But yeah, it was a good analogy too, as far as like when someone's drowning, you're not asking where they're affiliated with. You need to put a hand out. I also think there's a problem of like virtue signaling as well. It's like, look how great I am on social media. I donated to the poor. I have so much more respect for people. And not to say anyone who's compassionate gives to others, I have respect for, but when you do it when you're not expecting anything, or you do it behind the scenes, there's so much more power to that. It's like you're not doing it for recognition, you're doing it because it's the right thing to do. And I think social media in part has rewarded that, right? It's like, oh, look how nice you are, right? You gave to the homeless, but like you did it for a pat on the back. You didn't do it because like you actually had empathy for that person. You did it because you wanted to boost yourself up, not to
I'll give you.
expect.
Let me just jump on that for a second. Perfect example of that. And this guy, Kyrie Irving on the Nets, and he's been acting like super weird lately. Do you know who
I
he is?
haven't. No.
All right, he just like no, he doesn't. Nobody knows why he's not playing. He just hasn't been playing for like probably almost 2 weeks now. Um, but he's like one of the biggest stars in the NBA. And it was reported today that he bought a house for the family of George Floyd. Okay, but Kyrie Irving didn't report it. Somebody else did. Somebody else found out, and it would have really taken away from that gesture had Kyrie Irving called a press conference
Came out and did it
and,
himself.
and said like, "This is what I'm doing," and I've seen people posting their Facebook statuses like, "Oh, I saw this homeless person today and I bought them some food and he wound up teaching me a really nice lesson. And I'm just making this post to let you know that, there's still humanity in the world." It's like, yeah, you are, but you're also kind of making the post to tell everybody that you bought lunch for a homeless person.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
can, again, it's that ability to discern, like to see like, the deeper stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
Um, I'll tell you what, I have a small bladder, man. I am loving this conversation, and
Likewise.
I think we should do it again. I have to run to the bathroom. I think that you and I could talk for hours,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I really enjoy talking to you. And I'm always, it's nice. I'm not getting angry. You were like, I'm not getting mad.
Right
I'm
here
just
too. And
saying.
it's cool because I think that's what America's really about, is having the disagreements that we can learn from each other. And and after this conversation, you're gonna walk away and say, hey, you know what? He said that. And I'm gonna walk away and I'm like, hey, he said that. Now we're gonna think about it, we're gonna digest it. And hopefully other people see this and be like, all right, good. We can, disagree, like, and still love each other. Like, and I do want to have more guests on. If you have anybody who watches this and wants to join our conversation, 3, 4 people, we can have more people in this conversation too.
I
So
definitely would have some people that would be interested, and I would even like to pick this up again this could be a part one, because you and I could go for a long time.
Yeah, we can. And as time goes on, I want to structure it more, but I want it to be kind of organic as well.
So let me just leave it on this note. It's a great thing that everybody, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, wouldn't think twice about saving a drowning child.
Yes. That's how we're going to end it right there.
All right, my man.
All right, brother.
Well, we'll talk soon, and it was a pleasure, and thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, pleasure's mine.